Do you know where your family comes from as a Black American? It is more than skin color. It is about your history and who you are. Some Black Americans come from Native American tribes who lived in North America long ago. Others have ancestors from Africa, brought here during the slave trade. Many people today are unsure about their roots. Records in history books can be confusing. Sometimes families tell different stories. Some say their roots are Native American while others say African. Understanding your past helps you know who you really are. Who are the real Black Americans? In this in-depth discussion, we will uncover the historical, cultural, and genetic differences between Black Native Americans and African Americans. We'll look at their unique paths, shared struggles, cultural traditions, and the ongoing debate around identity. This is not about creating divisions. It's about understanding the rich and complex identity of Black people in America. Let's begin by exploring the key groups at the center of this conversation. Black Native Americans, ancestry and origins. Black Native Americans are people who come from Native American tribes, but also have African roots. Tribes like the Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole often married or joined with African people, especially during the time of slavery and colonization. Many Black people lived freely with Native tribes long before slavery started in the South. Some tribes, like the Seminole, gave shelter to escaped slaves. These escaped slaves were called Black Seminoles. They lived freely, married within the tribe, and helped protect the land. They were full members of the tribe and took part in important activities like ceremonies and decision-making. These groups created a unique culture that mixed African and Native traditions, languages, foods. Even though they had African roots, their daily life and culture were mostly Native American. There is also a bigger idea called the out-of-Africa theory. It says that all humans first came from Africa and then moved to other parts of the world. So the first Native Americans' ancient ancestors may have come from Africa too. But for this talk, we focus on the more recent history of Native Americans and African Americans in North America. African Americans, children of the slave trade. African Americans primarily descend from Africans who were forcibly brought to the Americas between the 16th and 19th centuries during the transatlantic slave trade. These individuals were uprooted from their homelands, stripped of their language, culture, religion, and family ties, and sold into slavery in the United States and other parts of the Western world. The African American experience is deeply rooted in trauma, resilience, and survival. From slavery to Jim Crow laws, segregation, and systemic racism, African Americans have endured centuries of oppression, but they've also built a distinct and powerful culture, one that blends African heritage with American realities. This culture includes spiritual traditions, music genres like gospel, blues, and hip-hop, culinary contributions like soul food, and historic achievements in civil rights, politics, and education. African Americans also led transformative movements such as the Civil Rights Movement and Black Lives Matter, reshaping the nation's consciousness around race and equality. Unlike Black Native Americans, African Americans were generally excluded from tribal life. They were seen as property, not allies. Over time, this created a clear line of cultural and social difference between the two groups, even if there was occasional blending. New Black Americans, immigration and changes. The Black identity in America became even more layered after the 1960s, as Black immigrants from the Caribbean, Africa, and Europe began to settle in the United States. These individuals, Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, Ghanaian, and more, did not share the same historical experience of slavery in the U.S. Instead, they brought with them their own cultures, languages, and customs. For many of these immigrants and their children, the label African American may not feel accurate. They might identify more with their national or cultural background, such as being Trinidadian American or Ethiopian American. Still, they participate in the broader Black American experience, often facing similar racial biases and systemic challenges. This growing diversity has made the term Black more inclusive, encompassing a global diaspora while also respecting distinct identities within it. Culture differences, Black Native Americans and African Americans. Though both groups fall under the umbrella of Black Americans, their cultures diverge in notable ways. Black Native Americans often maintain tribal languages, spiritual practices, and governance systems. Their identity is deeply tied to the land and to ancestral tribal stories and traditions. They might celebrate tribal ceremonies, speak elements of native languages, and participate in governance roles within their communities. Their food often blends indigenous ingredients like squash, maize, and beans with African cooking techniques. In contrast, African American culture developed largely under conditions of survival and resilience. It is more urbanized, more global in its influence, and rooted in the struggle for equality. Jazz, hip-hop, soul food, church traditions, and even political activism are all parts of the African American cultural fabric. These practices may have African roots, but have evolved in unique ways in the U.S. context. However, it's important to note that culture is not rigid. Over centuries, the two identities have overlapped and blended, especially in areas where communities live closely together. Common fight, racism, and unfair treatment. Despite their different backgrounds, Black Native Americans and African Americans have both faced systemic racism in America. Black Native Americans were often discriminated against not only by white settlers, but also within their own tribes. In some cases, tribal governments excluded Black members from citizenship, land ownership, and political participation. African Americans, meanwhile, endured slavery, segregation, disenfranchisement, redlining, and mass incarceration. Their struggle for civil rights has been long and ongoing. From the end of slavery in 1865 to the present day, they have fought for basic human rights and dignity in a country built on racial hierarchies. Both communities know what it's like to be treated as second-class citizens. Both have had to fight for recognition, survival, and identity in the face of overwhelming odds. Big move and mixing of cultures. Between the early 1900s and the 1970s, millions of African Americans left the rural South and migrated to cities in the North and West in what is now known as the Great Migration. During this period, Black Native Americans and African Americans often settled in the same neighborhoods and communities. Over time, the cultural lines between them began to blur. Oral histories and family stories increasingly included claims of Native ancestry. Unfortunately, due to the loss or destruction of records, especially those related to slave ownership, tribal enrollment, and census classifications, many of these claims remain unverified. Still, they highlight how deeply interconnected these identities have become. Finding roots with DNA tests. Today, many Black Americans are turning to genetic testing through companies like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe to better understand their roots. These tests can provide insight into African tribal origins and, in some cases, detect Native American ancestry. However, these tests have limitations. Because of how DNA is passed down, not everyone inherits identifiable Native American genetic markers, even if they have a Native ancestor. Moreover, current DNA databases underrepresent Native American tribes, particularly those with African lineage, leading to inaccurate or incomplete results. So while DNA testing is a powerful tool, it cannot always confirm or deny identity. Identity remains a deeply personal, cultural, and historical reality, not just a genetic one. Who is a real Black American? At this point, you might be wondering, what does it really mean to be a real Black American? The answer is that Black American identity is not monolithic. It is diverse, multifaceted, and layered with complexity. For some, being a real Black American means embracing the African American struggle, the legacy of slavery, the fight for civil rights, and the resilience of generations. For others, it means reconnecting with Native American roots, reviving lost tribal customs, and reclaiming a suppressed heritage. Neither identity is more authentic than the other. Both are valid, both are real. The very notion of realness should not be used to diminish anyone's lived experience. Instead, it should be used to celebrate the incredible diversity within the Black community. Blackness in America is a spectrum of culture, history, and resistance. It includes African Americans, Black Native Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, African immigrants, and more. Together, they create a powerful mosaic that continues to shape America's past, present, and future. Who are you? Are you from the first Black people of North America? Did your family come from Africa through the slave trade? Or maybe both? Only you can find the answer. You can do this by talking to your family and learning about your past. No matter what your roots are, your identity is real and strong. We hope this video helped you understand the difference between Black Native Americans and African Americans. Keep learning and asking questions. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Black History Archives. Stay proud, stay curious, and keep learning about your roots.